A lot of people believe there's a secret group called the Illuminati that controls the world, pulling the strings on news, movies, music, even the school system. Some go further and say the Illuminati are shape-shifting reptilians from another planet who started civilization, or an ancient race living underground that directs history from the shadows. And the evidence offered is usually a collage of symbols, coincidences, cherry-picked quotes, and out-of-context clips. When you take those apart carefully, the whole conclusion falls apart. Here's what's actually true. The Illuminati was a real society, founded in Bavaria in 1776 by Enlightenment reformers who wanted more reason and secular governance in a world dominated by church and monarchy. It stayed small, got banned within a decade, and disappeared. The modern, all-powerful Illuminati is a myth that grew later, stitched together by writers and polemicists who turned a minor historical footnote into a catch-all villain. Over the centuries, that label became a moving target. Sometimes it meant Freemasons, sometimes bankers, sometimes globalists, and in the late 20th century it mutated again into sci-fi, reptilian overlords, and underground civilizations. One name, many interchangeable fears. So why is the story so sticky? Because it gives simple answers to complex realities. The world is messy, governments compete, corporations jockey for advantage, media companies chase ratings, algorithms reward outrage. That complexity feels chaotic and unfair, so our brains reach for a single, elegant cause, a hidden hand. Psychologists have names for the habits that help these beliefs spread: confirmation bias, patternicity, proportionality bias, the need for control when we feel uncertain. If a music video flashes an eye inside a triangle, or a politician makes a hand gesture, or a movie echoes a real event, it feels like a connection. But feeling a connection isn't the same as proving causation. Look closely at the common proofs. Symbols first. The all-seeing eye, triangles, pyramids, these are old artistic and religious motifs used for centuries across many cultures. Artists and brands use them because they're striking, mysterious, and marketable. In pop culture, Illuminati imagery is a way to look edgy, not a confession of membership. Hand signs? The same gesture can mean rock on, I love you, in sign language, or just mid-sentence movement. Numerology? If you search long enough, you can make any date or statistic add up to a spooky number. That's not evidence, that's selection. And predictive programming, the idea that movies announce future events, is just hindsight bias. Out of thousands of films, a few will resemble something that later happens. We remember the hits and ignore the misses. Now think about the logistics. To actually control global newsrooms, film studios, music labels, universities, publishers, and dozens of governments, you'd need a coordinated network of millions of people across rival nations, agencies, and companies, decade after decade, without leaks, defections, or internal power struggles blowing it up in public. Yet real governments can't keep comparatively tiny operations secret for long. Whistleblowers exist, FOIA requests exist, rival parties and foreign intelligence services exist. Conspiracies do happen, but they're limited, brittle, and they leak. The bigger and longer a conspiracy is supposed to be, the less plausible it becomes. There's also a method problem. Science and investigative journalism work by laying out methods and evidence so others can check them. The Illuminati story works the opposite way. It starts with the conclusion and hunts for fragments to fit it. That's why the evidence is always visual motifs, ambiguous quotes, and a handful of anecdotes instead of a transparent mechanism that makes testable predictions. Ask basic questions and you'll see the difference. How exactly does this alleged group issue orders to thousands of independent editors across competing outlets? What are the enforcement tools? Where are the verifiable paper trails? What would falsify the claim? If the answer to every gap is, they covered it up, that's not an explanation. It's an escape hatch. None of this means power isn't real or that everything is fine. Real power concentrates through money, lobbying, media consolidation, political influence, private networks, and algorithms that amplify certain voices. Those are tangible, documented systems with names, records, incentives, and laws. You can track ownership, follow donations, read contracts, analyze board overlaps, and study regulatory capture. That's not a single omnipotent cabal. It's overlapping interests competing and sometimes colluding in the open. It's messy, and because it's messy, it's fixable. You can regulate, reform, vote, litigate, and expose. You don't need shapeshifters to explain conflicts of interest. So when people say the Illuminati controls everything, what they're usually doing is compressing 1,000 moving parts into one villain. It's emotionally satisfying and visually dramatic, but it's not how the world works. If your case depends on triangles in music videos, a celebrity covering one eye, and numbers that feel spooky, you don't have a mechanism. You have a mood board. And the moment you test those claims against full context, the history of the symbols, the incentives of media, the rivalries between institutions, the impossibility of leak-proof global coordination, the story collapses. Here's the healthier move. Be skeptical of everyone, including the skeptics. Ask for methods, not just claims. Look for converging evidence from independent sources. Favor explanations that scale with real-world incentives and constraints. And remember that complexity isn't proof of conspiracy. It's proof that the world is complicated. When we replace that complexity with a single, all-powerful myth, we don't gain truth, we lose it. When you look at the Illuminati conspiracy, the flat earth theory, and religious literalism side by side, they might seem like totally different beliefs. One is about secret elites controlling the world, another is about the shape of the planet, and another is about interpreting ancient scriptures literally. But at their core, they're built on the same mental habits. And that's why people who believe in one often lean toward believing in another. The Illuminati story says, don't trust what you're told. Everything you see is a cover-up by a hidden group pulling the strings. The Flat Earth story says, don't trust what you're told. Scientists, governments, and educators are lying to you about the most basic facts of our reality. And religious literalism says, don't trust what you're told. Modern science, history, and archaeology are all false if they contradict our sacred texts. Different surface claims, same distrust of outside authority. Each of these worldviews flips the burden of proof. Normally, facts are established by evidence and tested across many independent sources. But in these systems, facts are established by belief first, and then evidence is cherry-picked to fit. If you bring up contrary evidence, it's dismissed as part of the cover-up. For the Illuminati believer, evidence against the conspiracy just proves the Illuminati is powerful enough to hide it. For the flat earther, every picture of Earth from space is automatically fake. For the literalist, any fossil, any star, any archaeological site that contradicts the text is simply a test of faith or a trick from outsiders. Another link is the way all three simplify a very complex world. Reality is messy. Politics, science, cosmology, human origins, they're all vast, layered subjects that take years of study. But the Illuminati story reduces it all to a single puppet master. Flat Earth reduces all of astronomy, physics, and geology to a simple lie about the horizon. Literalism reduces thousands of years of human cultural history into a one-size-fits-all explanation. The text is right, and everything else is wrong. The attraction is that these explanations feel complete. They're easy to grasp and emotionally satisfying, even though they don't hold up to evidence. And finally, all three share a common promise. The believer is one of the few who sees through the lie. If you accept the Illuminati narrative, you're awake while the rest of the world is blind. If you accept flat Earth, you're one of the few not fooled by fake science. If you take scripture literally, you're part of the chosen group that sees eternal truth where others are misled. In every case, the believer feels special, chosen, enlightened, set apart from the deceived majority. That's not an accident. It's a powerful psychological payoff. So in a way, the Illuminati, flat Earth, and religious literalism are three branches of the same tree. They're all ways of rejecting mainstream knowledge, simplifying the complexity of reality, and creating an us versus them worldview. They look different on the outside, but underneath, they work the same way. And that's why they often show up together in the same conversations, the same online communities, and even the same people. When we trace the history of these ideas, we see that the Illuminati, flat Earth, and religious literalism don't just feel similar, they've actually grown together over time. The Illuminati conspiracy, for example, didn't begin as a story about reptilians or pop stars. It started in the late 1700s with a very real, short-lived group in Bavaria that wanted to promote Enlightenment ideals. They disbanded quickly, but their name lived on in the imaginations of people who feared social change. Over time, the Illuminati myth was fused with religious language, especially Christian apocalyptic themes about the Antichrist and the end times. Suddenly, what was once a minor Enlightenment group was recast as a satanic shadow government warring against God. This blending of religion and conspiracy is what allowed the Illuminati idea to stick. It got tied to biblical prophecy and literalist readings of Scripture. Flat Earth went through a similar transformation. In antiquity, almost every educated culture knew the Earth was round. The Greeks measured its circumference with surprising accuracy. But during the 19th century, religious literalists, people who insisted the Bible's cosmology must be taken literally, revived flat Earth ideas. They argued that if Scripture says the Earth has corners or is immovable, then science must be wrong. What had long been dismissed as a misunderstanding of ancient poetry suddenly reemerged as evidence of a grand deception. Again, literalism fed conspiracy. By the 20th century, these streams began crossing. The Illuminati conspiracy became less about politics and more about hidden puppet masters shaping culture, including science, media, and religion. Flat Earth believers began saying the Illuminati, or global elites, were behind the lie of the globe. And religious literalists began folding both ideas into their worldview. Not only was modern science wrong, but it was deliberately wrong, designed by satanic elites to pull people away from truth. Each movement borrowed from the other, reinforcing the same distrust of mainstream knowledge. This merging only intensified with the internet. Communities that once stayed separate, apocalyptic Christians, flat earthers, conspiracy theorists, suddenly overlapped. The same memes, the same talking points, the same sense of secret knowledge started circulating in all three spaces. Today, it's common to find someone who believes the Illuminati controls music, that NASA fakes space exploration, and that the Bible must be read word for word as literal history, all at the same time. In every case, the fuel is the same: distrust of authority, a rejection of complexity, and a deep psychological payoff for feeling like you've woken up to the truth everyone else is too blind to see. But when we pull the threads back, we see it's not three separate truths at all. It's one repeating pattern. Take myth or misunderstanding, literalize it, cast mainstream knowledge as a deception, and then elevate the believer as one of the chosen few who knows. That's how religious literalism helped resurrect Flat Earth. That's how Flat Earth tied into Illuminati narratives of control. And that's how the Illuminati myth itself borrowed power by absorbing biblical prophecy. Each of these conspiracies keeps the others alive, because they all share the same roots.